The vastness of space stretched endlessly, a sea of stars that seemed to shimmer with secrets. Humanity had long gazed at the stars, wondering what lay beyond the familiar reaches of their solar system. Now, they were stepping into a region that had always been shrouded in fear and mystery. The Dominion, a territory known across the galaxy for its strict rulers and powerful fleets, awaited them. Stories of civilizations that had disappeared after entering its borders filled every archive and lecture. Yet, aboard the ships moving steadily toward this unknown, there was no fear. There was only purpose. The first sight of the Dominion made even seasoned explorers pause. Towering structures floated silently in the distance, alien in every sense of the word. Some resembled gigantic spires of shimmering crystal, reflecting the light of distant suns. Others appeared as floating cities, their surfaces covered in patterns that no human had ever seen before. Satellites, defense platforms, and countless fleets moved in ways that suggested a discipline humans had never experienced. Yet, the people aboard the human ships did not flinch. They observed, noted, and continued on their course, as if the enormity of the Dominion was simply another challenge to understand rather than something to fear. The crew on the main ship, a vessel designed for exploration and survival, moved with calm efficiency. Every console was attended, every system monitored, every decision discussed thoughtfully. Unlike past expeditions by other species that had entered the Dominion with trepidation, humans did not whisper anxiously or freeze at the sight of strange technology. They approached the unknown with curiosity and caution, not panic. It was a quality that would soon become their defining feature. Among the crew were individuals chosen for their skills, not their titles. Scientists, engineers, navigators, and strategists worked together seamlessly. Even in moments of uncertainty, when an anomaly appeared on the radar or an unknown energy pulse was detected, there was no screaming, no frantic commands. Humans communicated clearly, suggesting options, weighing risks, and making decisions based on careful reasoning. In a place where fear often determined the fate of civilizations, this calm was almost revolutionary. The Dominion had eyes everywhere, though they were unlike human eyes. Sensors scanned the incoming ships, analyzing their speed, composition, and energy signatures. Reports of this new fleet reached the higher echelons of Dominion control, and the initial reactions were confusion and disbelief. Who were these beings that did not tremble at the sight of massive defenses? Who dared to enter a region so well guarded without hesitation? It was as if humanity had an invisible shield, not of technology, but of resolve. The humans continued their approach, observing everything around them. Small fleets of alien patrols moved to intercept them, forming formations meant to intimidate. Yet, when the humans observed these maneuvers, they did not react with panic or aggression. They adjusted their course with precision, keeping a safe distance while studying every movement. They recorded data on the formations, energy outputs, and signaling patterns. It was methodical, calculated, and fearless. Inside the human ships, conversations were not filled with speculation about what might go wrong. Instead, there were discussions about possibilities, about what they could learn, and how they could act if situations became dangerous. There was a sense of shared responsibility, a recognition that each person's contribution mattered. For example, when an unexpected gravitational anomaly appeared near one of the patrol routes, the engineers suggested multiple solutions. Some proposed altering the ship's trajectory slightly, while others devised a way to use the anomaly itself to gain speed. A final decision was made collaboratively, and the maneuver succeeded flawlessly. As they crossed further into the Dominion, humans began to notice subtle signs of other civilizations. Abandoned stations drifted silently, some partially destroyed, others strangely preserved. Strange energy readings flickered across sensors, hinting at the existence of technologies far beyond human understanding. Yet, instead of feeling dread, The crew felt fascination. Each discovery was a puzzle, a story waiting to be uncovered. They recorded everything carefully, knowing that knowledge could be as powerful as any weapon. Communication with homeworld stations was cautious but regular. Humans sent reports of what they had seen, analyzed, and experienced. They did not exaggerate dangers, nor did they underestimate them. The clarity in their communication reflected a broader approach to the mission: honesty, careful observation, and measured action. Other species watching from afar might have thought them reckless, but in reality, humans were calculated in their bravery. The journey through the Dominion was not without challenges. Strange energy storms erupted without warning, making navigation difficult. Debris fields stretched for light years, remnants of civilizations that had either failed or abandoned the territory. Radiation pulses from distant stars occasionally disrupted instruments. Yet, with every obstacle, humans adapted. Shields were recalibrated, courses were altered, and experiments were conducted to understand phenomena rather than simply avoid them. Fear, which had immobilized so many before them, had no place among the crew. One night, as the ship drifted silently past a massive ringed structure, a young scientist gazed out at the glowing bands and whispered softly to a colleague, "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Her tone was not one of awe in the face of danger, but quiet admiration for the universe's complexity. Others joined her at the observation deck, marveling at the delicate patterns of light and energy. Even in a region where countless species had faltered, humans found wonder. Their emotions were not suppressed by fear, but enhanced by curiosity. Among the leadership, decisions were made with thoughtfulness. Strategies were planned not only for safety, but for understanding. The commanding officers encouraged initiative, allowing crew members to explore, experiment, and learn. Mistakes were seen as lessons, not disasters. When a minor miscalculation nearly brought a small shuttle too close to a debris field, the team analyzed what went wrong and shared the findings openly. There was no panic, no blame, only a collective effort to improve. The human ships also began to detect faint signals communications that were not meant for them, but were being broadcast across the Dominion. Strange frequencies, patterns that seemed like coded messages, and even glimpses of other life forms navigating the territory were recorded. Instead of fear, humans responded with curiosity. They studied the signals, trying to understand them, hypothesizing about their origin, and preparing to respond if contact was ever initiated. For the Dominion, humans were becoming an enigma. Observers reported that these beings did not behave like any known species. They did not cower. They did not attack without cause. They moved with purpose, respected rules but questioned when necessary, and adapted to the unknown without panic. The very idea of fear, a tool the Dominion had long used to control others, seemed ineffective against humanity. As the first part of their journey drew to a close, the humans reached a region dense with massive energy barriers and floating fortresses. This area had been considered impassable by previous civilizations. Yet, with careful planning, observation, and collaboration, they navigated it successfully. The crew celebrated quietly, not out of triumph over enemies, but out of satisfaction at overcoming a challenge together. At the end of the first stretch of their voyage, humans had not only survived, but also made first contact with the Dominion in a way that no other species had. They had observed, recorded, and adapted without fear. And as the stars stretched endlessly before them, it became clear that this was only the beginning. Humanity was entering a region where fear ruled many. Yet they had shown that courage, clarity, and curiosity could be just as powerful as fleets or weapons. The story of their arrival spread quietly among Dominion observers. Whispers began in command rooms and observation towers. Who were these beings who moved calmly where others had trembled? Could a species exist that was not controlled by fear? And if so, what did that mean for the balance of power in the Dominion? In that moment, humanity took its first real step into a place that had challenged countless civilizations. They were explorers, thinkers, and learners. They were unafraid. And as they continued deeper into the Dominion, one thing became certain. The universe had never encountered humans like this before, and it would take much more than legends of fear to stop them. The first real encounter with the Dominion's forces came sooner than anyone had expected. As the human ships moved deeper into the territory, sensors detected a fleet ahead, arranged in precise, intimidating formations. Each vessel was massive, sleek, and bristling with unknown technology. The moment the humans appeared on their scanners, the aliens assumed panic would follow. After all, no other species had dared approach with such calmness, and none had ever ventured so far without trembling at the very thought of the Dominion dot inside the human flagship. The crew observed the fleet calmly. There was no rush, no frantic orders, only careful observation. The officers gathered around the main display, studying the shapes, movement patterns, and energy emissions. "They're expecting us to hesitate," one analyst noted quietly. "But we won't. Let's make sure we understand their formation first." The words carried no arrogance, only clarity and purpose. Humans were not afraid, and the aliens could sense it, even if they could not fully understand it. The Dominion patrols moved closer, forming rings around the human ships as if to encircle them. Their goal was clear: intimidation. They wanted to see fear in the eyes of these newcomers, to break their spirit before any real communication began. But the humans didn't react the way the Dominion had planned. The ship's captain issued calm commands, keeping a safe distance while initiating passive scans and sending out small exploratory probes. Nothing aggressive, nothing hasty, just careful, deliberate steps forward. What made the humans truly remarkable in this moment was how they approached communication. Instead of sending threats or preemptive strikes, they transmitted a simple message: identification, intent, and a request for dialogue. The Dominion, accustomed to instant obedience or submission, was caught off guard. No other species had ever dared to ask questions in their territory, much less approach with such poise. For a moment, the patrols froze, unsure how to react. The initial exchange was cautious. The humans asked questions that went beyond protocol, exploring the Dominion's culture, values, and technological understanding. They didn't mock or challenge, but they probed with curiosity, genuinely trying to understand. The aliens, in turn, responded with carefully chosen words, trying to gauge the humans' intentions. They had expected fear, hesitation, even desperation. Instead, they encountered patience, intelligence, and a subtle confidence that made them uneasy. Meanwhile, the crew inside the human ships worked seamlessly. Engineers monitored energy flows, ensuring shields and propulsion systems were fully operational. Scientists examined the readings from the Dominion fleet, noting patterns and anomalies. Navigators calculated trajectories and optimal distances, all while maintaining readiness for any sudden movements. Every person knew their role, and every person performed it without panic. Their fearlessness was not reckless. It was disciplined, precise, and entirely natural. The aliens attempted to intimidate further. A sudden surge of energy passed near one of the human ships, creating turbulence in space that would have shaken most vessels. Lights flickered, energy readings spiked, and the crew felt the vibration of power. Yet no one panicked. The captain calmly directed adjustments to the ship's field stabilizers, and the crew worked together to compensate. Within minutes, the ship moved steadily, unaffected by the attempt to instill fear. Observers in the Dominion fleet noted this, whispering among themselves in disbelief. One of the human scientists, monitoring the energy patterns, noticed something interesting. "They're using repeated signals, almost like a language of power," she said. "It's meant to be intimidating, but we can interpret it. Using human ingenuity, the crew decoded parts of the pattern and began predicting the Dominion's maneuvers. The aliens tried new tactics, but the humans adjusted, maintaining calm control. Every move, every calculation, every adjustment was precise. It was a demonstration of courage and intelligence working together. The moment of greatest tension came when a smaller Dominion craft approached directly in front of the human flagship. It was fast, its energy fields intense, and its movements sharp, almost aggressive. The alien vessel sent pulses that could disrupt human systems if mishandled. The crew held their positions. They did not fire. They did not retreat. They simply observed, calculated, and responded appropriately. With a subtle adjustment in their shields and a careful realignment of their own energy emissions, the pulse was absorbed harmlessly. The Dominion ship paused, stunned that the humans had not reacted with fear. As this encounter unfolded, the aliens began to realize something unexpected. Humans operated on principles they did not fully understand. Their decisions were not driven by fear of harm, nor by the desire to dominate. Instead, they acted with clarity, purpose, and ethics. They adapted, solved problems creatively, and responded to threats without panic. To the Dominion, it was almost unnatural, and yet it was profoundly effective. The humans didn't stop at observation and defense. They reached out with simple gestures of diplomacy, offering small signs of goodwill. These included sharing basic coordinates of safe passages, acknowledging the existence of Dominion rules, and signaling their intent to study rather than destroy. It was not flattery, and it was not weakness. It was respect paired with confidence. The Dominion officers, who were used to controlling others through fear and dominance, began to see the humans in a new light. They were not enemies, and they were not subjects. They were something entirely different. Inside the human fleet, there were also quiet moments of reflection. The crew marveled at the alien technology, its complexity, and its beauty. Unlike many previous explorers who had entered the Dominion with trembling curiosity, humans felt a sense of responsibility. They were observers and learners, capable of changing the perception of an entire civilization simply by being themselves. This awareness gave them a quiet pride, not arrogance, as they continued their careful approach. Over time, a pattern emerged. The Dominion's fleet began to allow small distances between the human ships and their own, perhaps out of caution, perhaps out of curiosity. The humans never pushed forward aggressively, but they maintained their course with steady confidence. They analyzed formations, recorded movements, and discussed every observation with clarity. Their fearlessness created a ripple effect. Where fear had ruled, humans introduced thoughtfulness, strategy, and calm. The human crew also discovered ways to learn about the Dominion without confrontation. They used long-range sensors to map the surrounding space, noting energy signatures, artificial structures, and unusual phenomena. They recorded everything for future analysis, not as trophies, but as knowledge. Knowledge, after all, was humanity's true strength. And while the Dominion might control through fear, humans controlled through understanding, and that power was quietly growing. Even the youngest members of the crew felt the difference. Apprentices, interns, and new recruits moved among the decks with confidence. They asked questions, ran experiments, and contributed to the mission. They were encouraged to think independently, to observe carefully, and to report honestly. In a place designed to intimidate and dominate, humans had created an environment where courage, curiosity, and collaboration thrived. One day, a particularly massive alien patrol attempted a direct test. They positioned themselves in a wide arc across the human fleet's path, their energy shields glowing like a wall of light. The intent was obvious: to see if humans would retreat, to test their limits of fear. Instead, humans approached methodically. Navigators calculated safe distances, Scientists analyzed energy patterns, and engineers optimized shields and engines. The humans passed through the arc without incident, recording every detail. The Dominion observed, slowly realizing that fear was useless against this species. By the end of this encounter, the first real contact between humans and the Dominion had been completed without violence. Humans had communicated, learned, and demonstrated their resilience. They had shown that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. For the aliens, this was confusing, unsettling, and in some cases, admirable. It was the first time in centuries that an approaching species had not reacted predictably to the Dominion's intimidation. As the human fleet continued, their confidence was tempered by awareness. They knew the Dominion was vast, with layers of power and complexity the humans had yet to understand. But they also knew that fear would never dictate their actions. Every move, every decision, every interaction was guided by reason, ethics, and the quiet strength of a species that refused to be ruled by dread. And so, as the first encounters concluded, humanity began to carve its place within the Dominion. They were explorers, communicators, and learners. They were calm where others had panicked, thoughtful where others had struck blindly. And most importantly, they were unafraid. Stories of these encounters spread quietly through Dominion networks. Officers whispered of the fearless species that had entered their space without hesitation, a species that listened, observed, and adapted rather than cowering. Some began to admire them. Others grew wary, but all understood one undeniable truth. Humans did not react to fear the way other species did. The first contact had been made, and humanity had passed the initial tests of courage, diplomacy, and intelligence. The journey was far from over. The deeper humanity moved into the Dominion, the more challenging their journey became. Vast swaths of uncharted space stretched out before them, filled with strange energy fields, drifting debris, and mysterious phenomena. While some might have seen danger in every glimmer, humans approached with curiosity rather than fear. They understood that the unknown could be dangerous, but it could also teach them more than any peaceful region ever could. Their strength lay in observation, understanding, and the quiet confidence that fear would never control them. It began with the anomalies. A strange ripple in space appeared ahead of the fleet, bending light and distorting instruments. Some sensors went haywire, while others picked up unusual energy signatures that no human had ever seen. The crew gathered around displays, analyzing patterns, measuring frequencies, and suggesting possibilities. Instead of panic, the room buzzed with quiet excitement. Each scientist, navigator, and engineer contributed ideas. Some suggested altering their path. Others proposed investigating the anomaly directly to learn its nature. The decision, as always, was careful and deliberate. They would approach slowly, gather data, and adapt as needed. As the ships drew closer, the ripple intensified, creating subtle gravitational shifts that tugged at the fleet. The Dominion had left these areas intentionally unstable, a warning to anyone who might venture too far. Humans, however, did not react with fear. The engineers adjusted the ship's stabilizers, while navigators calculated the safest trajectory through the disturbance. Even the youngest crew members, new recruits observing the process, were impressed by the methodical approach. Every obstacle became a problem to solve, not a reason to flee. Soon, the humans discovered another challenge. A massive, partially destroyed station drifted near their path, surrounded by a cloud of debris. Its structure was unlike anything they had ever seen, with towering spires and glowing conduits that pulsed with energy. Scans revealed faint life signals, but they were irregular, almost like echoes of a past existence. The crew debated whether to investigate or bypass the structure. Fear could have dictated caution, but humans relied on reason. They decided to send a small team in a shuttle to study it, ensuring both safety and learning. The shuttle moved carefully, gliding past jagged fragments of metal. Inside, the small team marveled at the alien construction. Its technology was advanced, yet there were signs of decay, hints of battles long past. They recorded every detail, analyzed energy flows, and even recovered a few small artifacts for study. The Dominion's history was unfolding before them, and humans approached it with respect rather than alarm. To them, understanding was the true reward, and fear was irrelevant. Back in the main fleet, tensions occasionally rose, but never into panic. Energy storms swept through parts of the Dominion, threatening navigation and communications. The waves of charged particles would have disabled less prepared vessels, yet humans responded with calm precision. Shields were recalibrated, engines adjusted, and flight paths carefully recalculated. Every action was deliberate, every decision based on observation and logic rather than emotion. The storms passed, leaving the humans unscathed, and once again they continued deeper into the unknown. Alongside these natural challenges, the Dominion itself presented tests. Small patrols attempted maneuvers meant to intimidate or confuse the humans. Energy pulses were directed toward them, strange signals disrupted instruments, and formations shifted in unpredictable patterns. Many species would have reacted with fear, either fleeing or responding with aggression. Humans, however, adapted. They studied the pulses, decoded the signals, and adjusted their formations. Every attempt by the Dominion to induce fear was met with calm intelligence, turning what could have been a trap into a learning opportunity. During one particularly tense moment, a squadron of alien ships surrounded a human scouting team. The aliens' movements were rapid and precise, a test of both courage and skill. The humans did not fire, nor did they retreat hastily. Instead, they observed patterns in the alien formations, analyzed timing and distance, and carefully adjusted their shuttle routes. Slowly, deliberately, the squadron was able to navigate safely through the trap without aggression. The Dominion watchers were baffled. No species had ever maintained composure so completely under such pressure. Even as the humans faced these external challenges, they also contended with internal obstacles. Long hours in tense situations tested patience and endurance. Supplies needed careful management, and minor disagreements arose as ideas for navigation or analysis clashed. Yet these moments were handled with collaboration and respect. Crew members listened to one another, weighed options, and made collective decisions. No one dominated out of fear. No one panicked under pressure. This unity became another form of strength, showing that fearlessness was not just about bravery, but about trust and cooperation. The humans also discovered ways to study the Dominion without provoking hostility. They observed patrol patterns, mapped routes, and analyzed signals from afar. By learning patiently and indirectly, they gained insight into the alien systems without unnecessary risk. This approach fascinated some Dominion observers. They had expected aggression or submission, but humans demonstrated something entirely new: patience, intelligence, and courage combined. It was an anomaly the Dominion could not easily categorize. Throughout these encounters, small moments of human connection emerged. Scientists shared insights with engineers. Navigators discussed possibilities with strategists, and even the youngest crew members contributed meaningful observations. These interactions were subtle, almost unnoticed by external observers, but they reinforced a sense of purpose and confidence. Fear could have fractured them, but instead, humans became stronger through cooperation and understanding. One of the most critical challenges came when the fleet approached a massive energy barrier, a structure that pulsed with dangerous waves of power. To most, it would have seemed insurmountable. Many previous civilizations had avoided it, fearful of the unknown consequences. Humans, however, approached carefully. Engineers studied the pulses, navigators calculated safe routes, and scientists theorized about the barrier's origin and purpose. They tested small, controlled probes before committing any ships to passage. Every action was thoughtful, precise, and fearless. As the fleet passed through, disturbances rattled the ships, and minor systems temporarily failed. But the humans adapted quickly, implementing backup protocols and adjusting energy fields. The barrier that was meant to intimidate became a challenge to overcome through ingenuity. For the crew, each successful maneuver strengthened confidence and reinforced their belief that fear was not a necessary part of exploration. The Dominion continued to observe. Their officers whispered about the humans' ability to face danger without panic. They noted the calm, deliberate actions, the clear communication, and the unity of purpose. No species had responded this way. Some officers grew curious, wondering if these humans could teach them something about resilience. Others felt unease, realizing that fear, a tool they had long used to control others, was powerless against these newcomers. Humans also began to understand more about the Dominion itself. They discovered patterns in patrol routes, communication signals, and energy flows. They pieced together glimpses of alien society, technology, and history, often inferring more than the Dominion expected. With each observation, they grew wiser, more confident, and more capable of navigating both the physical and political complexities of this vast territory. As Part 3 drew to a close, humans faced their greatest lesson yet, that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act thoughtfully in its presence. They learned to adapt unexpected challenges, to work together under pressure, and to seek understanding where others might see only danger. Their journey through the Dominion was testing them, shaping them, and proving that fear would never define them. By the end of this stage, humans had transformed from mere explorers into adept navigators of a complex, intimidating region. They had faced anomalies, storms, and alien patrols with calm precision. They had observed, analyzed, and adapted in ways that impressed and unsettled the Dominion. And most importantly, they had done it without ever succumbing to fear. The Dominion began to whisper of the humans' resilience. Officers, scholars, and strategists debated the meaning of this fearless species. Some speculated on their potential as allies or threats, while others simply marveled at their composure. Across the vast reaches of the Dominion, humans had made an impression not by force, but by courage, intelligence, and calm determination. And so, as the human fleet moved further into uncharted space, the crew understood a truth that would guide them through countless future challenges. Fear was not an obstacle, but a choice. They chose not to yield to it, and in doing so, they had already begun to change the way the Dominion saw the universe. Humanity was not just surviving, they were thriving, learning, and transforming the boundaries around them simply by being themselves. As humanity moved further into the Dominion, the ripple effects of their presence began to show. The Dominion, a vast network of powerful civilizations, had long ruled through fear and discipline. Commanders and rulers relied on intimidation, strict protocols, and the expectation that every species would follow rules or be destroyed. But humans had entered without fear. They had moved with calm intelligence and unwavering curiosity. This unusual behavior did not go unnoticed. Rumors of their courage and composure spread quietly among patrol fleets, research stations, and even the councils of the Dominion. Within the Dominion's central command centers, debates began in earnest. High-ranking officials gathered to discuss this anomaly. Who were these humans, and why did they not react as others did? Some argued that they were dangerous, unpredictable, perhaps even immune to intimidation. Others suggested they might be studied, observed, or even guided to understand the Dominion's ways. Fear, a tool that had always worked, seemed ineffective. Every report from the patrols described the same thing. Humans responded with calm logic, adapted to challenges quickly, and respected the Dominion's rules while remaining independent in thought. Meanwhile, humans continued their journey, unaware of the whispers and debates happening about them. They faced new challenges every day, from shifting gravitational anomalies to energy storms that pulsed across vast stretches of space. Each obstacle was approached systematically. Engineers calibrated systems, navigators adjusted trajectories, and scientists monitored every change. Even in the most tense moments, humans relied on communication, observation, and collaboration rather than fear. Their resilience became their most powerful tool. The Dominion tested them in subtler ways now. Small patrols would appear along unusual routes, signaling with intense energy pulses designed to intimidate. Some sectors of space had traps left by previous civilizations, and even natural hazards were often amplified by Dominion technology. Yet humans navigated these trials with a quiet confidence that unsettled the alien commanders. Instead of retreating or lashing out, they analyzed each situation, predicted outcomes, and acted with precision. Every encounter reinforced their reputation as a species not governed by fear. Inside the human fleet, lessons were learned daily. When an unexpected energy surge threatened the navigation systems, the crew quickly devised a way to reroute power and stabilize the fleet. When a patrol fleet attempted to encircle them, humans observed, noted patterns, and adapted their course without aggression. Even minor setbacks were treated as opportunities to learn rather than reasons for panic. Crew members discussed solutions openly, collaborated across departments, and supported one another through long hours. Fear, which had immobilized many before them, was absent. One particularly tense encounter occurred when a Dominion task force attempted a test. The fleet positioned itself across a wide sector of space, seemingly attempting to block humanity's path. Energy barriers pulsed between ships, and unusual signals interfered with communication. It was a situation designed to intimidate and confuse. Humans responded as always with calm observation. Navigators calculated safe pathways through the barriers. Engineers adjusted shields, and scientists monitored the signals to understand their meaning. They did not retaliate. They did not panic. Slowly and methodically, the human fleet moved through the task force without incident, leaving the Dominion officers bewildered. This approach began to shift perceptions within the Dominion itself. Observers noted that humans were not reckless. They were disciplined, intelligent, and consistent in their behavior. Unlike species that reacted with aggression or submission, humans followed their principles. This unexpected stability forced Dominion strategists to rethink their assumptions about the universe. Perhaps fear was not the ultimate tool of control. Perhaps there was strength in calm, ethical, and reasoned action. Humans also began to interact indirectly with members of the Dominion in ways that were never expected. Observing the fleets, they recorded patterns, energy signatures, and communication frequencies. They noted behavior, studying not just technology, but also tactics and decision-making processes. Their goal was never domination or aggression. It was understanding. Even in a region where every species had felt threatened, humans approached with a level of respect and ethical awareness that fascinated Dominion scholars. Small acts of humanity further demonstrated their approach. Crews offered guidance for safe navigation through hazardous zones, documented previously unknown structures, and ensured that no alien vessel or installation was harmed unnecessarily. Their presence was not a threat, but an example of how a species could move confidently without causing harm. Dominion officers began to whisper of this strange new model of power. They had always relied on fear to maintain control. Humans suggested another way: strength through knowledge, cooperation, and ethical courage. Not every Dominion member welcomed this. Some were suspicious, viewing humans as potential manipulators or hidden threats. Others argued for stricter tests, attempting more aggressive maneuvers to provoke fear. Yet humans met every test with clarity and intelligence. When a patrol attempted to block a corridor using overwhelming energy fields, humans rerouted, adjusted shields, and studied the tactic. They were neither reactive nor combative. They simply adapted. Each success reinforced the notion that fear had no dominion over them. Inside the fleet, the human crew grew closer. Long periods of uncertainty fostered strong bonds. Scientists, engineers, navigators, and officers trusted one another implicitly. Ideas were shared freely, solutions were debated respectfully, and mistakes were treated as opportunities to learn rather than moments of failure. Even in the face of potential danger, morale remained high because trust and collaboration replaced fear. Every day, the crew learned not only about the Dominion, but also about themselves, their resilience, ingenuity, and ability to remain calm under pressure. One particularly challenging scenario tested every skill the humans had developed. A massive energy storm, larger than any recorded in Dominion history, moved across their path. The storm's pulses disrupted instruments, created gravitational anomalies, and threatened structural integrity. Most species would have retreated or panicked, but humans faced it directly. They calculated a path through the storm, adjusted shields, and coordinated every ship's movement in real time. Minor system failures were handled immediately, and backup protocols kept every vessel safe. Hours later, the storm passed, leaving the humans unscathed. Their calm mastery of the situation earned quiet recognition from some Dominion observers who had been watching DOT as humans moved forward. They also began to understand subtle political dynamics within the Dominion. Different factions had different priorities. Some ruled through fear, some through bureaucracy, and others through alliances. By observing patterns of communication, movement, and behavior, humans learned how to navigate these complexities without confrontation. They recognized that understanding the people and the systems was as important as understanding the technology. And they approached this learning with patience, curiosity, and ethical consideration. Gradually, humans began to influence small changes. Their fearlessness and consistency began to inspire Dominion individuals who had long been suppressed by strict hierarchy. Some whispered admiration, quietly questioning why humans were so calm and disciplined. Others noted that human actions were thoughtful, fair, and strategic. Over time, subtle shifts occurred not in large fleets or policies, but in individual minds. Humans, by simply existing and acting according to principles, were beginning to reshape perceptions. Yet, humans never sought control or recognition. They moved through the Dominion not as conquerors, but as explorers. Their goal was understanding, learning, and safe passage. They shared knowledge when appropriate, helped when possible, and adapted constantly. The Dominion watched, sometimes in awe, sometimes in confusion, realizing that these humans were unlike any species they had encountered before DOT. As the journey continued, the humans encountered even more complex challenges. Navigational anomalies, unpredictable energy fields, and remnants of ancient battles tested their skills and patience. But each time, humans responded with calm ingenuity. They did not fear failure. They used it to learn. They did not panic under pressure. They collaborated. They did not rush blindly. They observed and adapted. In a place where fear had long dictated outcomes, humans demonstrated a different form of strength, reasoned courage, and ethical action. By the end of this stage, humanity had proven something extraordinary. They had entered a region designed to intimidate and control. They had faced tests of skill, endurance, and courage. And they had done so without yielding to fear. The Dominion, for the first time in centuries, witnessed a species that acted from principle rather than instinct. Observers debated, scholars wrote, and commanders reconsidered strategies. Humans were no longer just visitors. They were a living example of a different way of being in the universe. The humans themselves, meanwhile, continued to move forward with quiet determination. They had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act with reason, ethics, and confidence even in the face of danger. They had discovered that cooperation, trust, and curiosity could overcome. As humanity advanced deeper into the Dominion, the effects of their presence became more noticeable. Where fear had long shaped behavior, humans introduced something entirely new: calm determination, patience, and ethical courage. Even the smallest encounters began to create ripples of change. Dominion officers whispered among themselves, some with admiration, some with unease, but all with a growing recognition that these humans operated by rules the Dominion could not easily understand. Humans were not here to dominate, nor were they easily intimidated. They were here to observe, to learn, and to act with integrity. One of the earliest examples of this influence appeared when humans encountered a sector controlled by a particularly rigid Dominion faction. Patrols moved in tight formations, projecting authority and readiness to strike. Other species might have felt trapped, choosing either confrontation or retreat. Humans, however, observed carefully, studying patrol patterns, energy flows, and communication frequencies. Rather than challenge the authority or attempt to deceive it, they chose to demonstrate respect for rules while continuing their path with quiet confidence. This approach unsettled the Dominion officers. Humans were showing that strength could exist without aggression, and that courage could be expressed through ethical action rather than dominance. The humans also began to make small contributions that reshaped local conditions. They shared information about safe passages through hazardous regions, offered insights into the behavior of energy anomalies, and documented remnants of abandoned stations. Each action was deliberate and helpful, never coercive. To many Dominion observers, it was baffling. A species had entered their territory, moved confidently, and yet caused no harm. More than that, they seemed to inspire subtle reflection among those who had long ruled by fear. A particularly notable instance occurred when humans helped a small group of alien crews who had become stranded near a drifting energy storm. The humans did not demand payment or obedience. They provided guidance, coordinated rescue efforts, and ensured that every ship returned safely. Dominion officers watching from afar were astonished. This was unprecedented. In the past, helping another species would have been seen as either weakness or strategy for domination. Humans demonstrated something else entirely: cooperation without expectation of reward, and courage without fear. These small acts began to have a wider impact. Some Dominion officers started questioning their own assumptions. Could fear truly be the only path to control? Could courage exist without aggression? Human actions suggested it could. Scholars studying the humans began documenting their behavior in detail. They noted that humans remained calm under pressure, adapted quickly, and operated with a sense of ethical responsibility that seemed almost foreign. Slowly, a small shift began to occur within the Dominion itself. As curiosity and admiration grew alongside uncertainty, humans faced challenges as well. Navigating through energy fields that defied understanding, dealing with communication disruptions, and responding to unpredictable patrol patterns required constant attention. Yet they continued to act methodically. Engineers recalibrated systems to withstand disturbances. Navigators calculated routes with extreme precision, and scientists monitored anomalies for signs of danger or opportunity. Every obstacle became a learning experience rather than a reason for fear. In doing so, humans not only survived, they thrived. The ethical nature of their approach became particularly evident during encounters with abandoned alien stations. Many had been damaged in previous conflicts or left in decay. Humans approached with care, analyzing the structures, documenting the technology and avoiding any action that could cause further harm. They recorded every detail for study, knowing that understanding the past could prevent mistakes in the future. Dominion observers began to see the humans not as threats, but as a species that valued knowledge, cooperation, and moral integrity. Another challenge arose when a particularly large Dominion fleet attempted to test humanity's limits. The formation was complex, designed to intimidate and provoke a defensive response. Many species might have panicked, launching preemptive strikes or retreating in fear. Humans, however, simply observed, noted the formation, and adjusted their course strategically. They communicated clearly within the fleet, making decisions as a team and supporting one another in every step. The fleet passed the test without aggression, demonstrating that intelligence and courage could overcome intimidation. Within the human fleet, teamwork continued to be a defining strength. Long periods of travel and repeated challenges fostered trust and collaboration. Crew members shared ideas freely, debated strategies respectfully, and supported each other during moments of tension. This unity was a powerful shield against fear, reinforcing the principle that courage was not individual bravery alone, but the ability to act collectively with thoughtfulness and integrity. Even the youngest crew members were encouraged to contribute, offering insights that were valued and incorporated into decisions. Over time, humans began to see subtle changes in the Dominion itself. Individual officers who had long relied on intimidation began to question their methods. Some admired the humans' calm problem-solving. Others reflected on the effectiveness of fear-based strategies. Slowly, systems that once depended entirely on intimidation showed signs of vulnerability. Whispers of reform spread among the lower ranks, and a few officers began experimenting with cooperation and observation rather than threats. Humanity's presence was acting like a mirror, revealing that courage and integrity could inspire change in even the most rigid systems. Even as they influenced others, humans remained focused on their own mission. They continued to map the Dominion, study anomalies, and interact cautiously with alien systems. Every action was deliberate, every encounter an opportunity to learn. They did not seek power, and they did not manipulate others. Their strength lay in their ability to act with clarity, reason, and ethical purpose. This approach, more than any weapon or strategy, became the hallmark of humanity in the Dominion. A turning point occurred when humans encountered a region where natural and artificial hazards intertwined. Massive energy storms, gravitational distortions, and drifting debris created conditions that could overwhelm any fleet. Humans approached methodically. They monitored the storms, calculated safe passages, and adjusted shields and engines continuously. Even when minor systems failed or communication lagged, they worked calmly to restore stability. Dominion observers were forced to recognize the humans' resilience. Here was a species that faced danger head-on without panic, adapting and learning rather than reacting impulsively. The ethical dimension of their presence continued to shine. In one case, humans discovered a stranded alien species trapped in the wreckage of a drifting station. They coordinated a rescue operation, repairing life support systems and guiding the aliens to safety. No demands were made, no threats given, no rewards expected. The act was purely humanitarian, yet it sent a message to the Dominion. Courage and compassion could coexist. And fear was not necessary for influence. As these events unfolded, humans began forming subtle alliances with Dominion individuals who admired their approach. These alliances were not political or coercive. They were built on mutual respect and understanding. The humans listened to these allies, learned from them, and shared knowledge cautiously and ethically. Slowly, a network of cooperation began to emerge, showing that influence did not always require force. Dominion members who had long felt powerless under fear-based systems found inspiration in the humans. Example. By the end of this stage, humanity had begun to transform the Dominion in small but meaningful ways. Their fearlessness, ethical action, and calm intelligence had challenged long-held assumptions about power and control. They had proven that courage was not the absence of danger, but the ability to act thoughtfully, collaboratively, and morally in the face of it. Even the Dominion's most rigid officers could not ignore the changes that were taking root. Humans themselves reflected quietly on their progress. They understood that every challenge they overcame, every system they studied, and every act of ethical courage reinforced the principle that fear need not define behavior. They had navigated energy storms, decoded alien signals, rescued stranded crews, and negotiated complex interactions without panic or aggression. Each success strengthened not only their confidence, but also their collective reputation. As they moved deeper, they realized their influence extended beyond immediate encounters. By acting consistently with courage, intelligence, and ethics, humans were inspiring changes in the thinking of alien observers, shaping perceptions without conflict or coercion. Their presence demonstrated that strength could be measured in resilience, cooperation, and moral clarity rather than dominance or fear. The Dominion, for all its history of control through intimidation, was beginning to reconsider what power truly meant. Human behavior showed that influence could arise from principle rather than threats, from collaboration rather than coercion, and from courage rather than panic. Humans were not conquerors, they were exemplars, demonstrating that a species could thrive and inspire change through understanding, patience, and ethical action. And so, humanity continued its journey, moving with quiet conf. By the time humanity reached the farthest reaches of the Dominion, they were no longer simply visitors. They had become observers, learners, and quiet influencers, demonstrating a power unlike anything the Dominion had experienced. Where fear had ruled for centuries, humans had shown that calm intelligence, ethical courage, and resilience could inspire change. The ripple effects of their presence had already begun. Whispers of their deeds traveled across patrol fleets, research stations, and council chambers. Some wondered what kind of species could act with such composure, never yielding to panic or intimidation. Others quietly admired them, seeing a new model of strength they had never considered before. Challenges continued to arise. Vast regions of space remained uncharted, filled with gravitational anomalies, drifting debris, and fluctuating energy fields. The Dominion itself continued to test humanity with subtle maneuvers, probing formations, and unexpected energy pulses designed to intimidate. But the humans responded as they always had, with observation, calculation, and teamwork. They adjusted shields, rerouted power, and coordinated fleet movements with precision. They did not panic. They did not attack without cause. They acted thoughtfully, consistently, and without fear. One critical moment came when humans approached an enormous structure floating silently in space. It appeared ancient, a relic of civilizations long gone, yet its technology pulsed faintly with energy. Dominion patrols moved around it in protective circles, guarding it as they had with countless other relics. Humans could have avoided it entirely, yet curiosity and a desire to learn guided them. Small exploratory teams were sent closer, analyzing the structure with care, documenting energy flows, and noting anomalies. Nothing was damaged, nothing was altered. Every action was deliberate and respectful. The Dominion officers observing this quietly began to realize that humans did not see the universe as something to dominate, or fear they saw it as something to understand. The structure revealed surprising insights. Its technology, though ancient, operated with principles humans had not yet encountered. Energy flowed in patterns that suggested both stability and adaptability, a balance the Dominion rarely achieved in its modern constructs. Humans recorded every detail, discussed possible applications, and considered how this knowledge might enhance their understanding of both space and civilizations. For them, the discovery was a puzzle, a challenge to the mind, rather than a reason for alarm or conquest. While exploring these regions, humans also encountered remnants of previous civilizations that had failed in the Dominion. Abandoned stations, decayed fleets, and energy anomalies told stories of fear, miscalculation, and rigidity. Where other species had succumbed to panic or aggression, humans studied carefully. They analyzed causes of collapse, learned lessons, and documented findings to avoid repeating mistakes. In doing so, they turned what could have been reminders of danger into sources of knowledge and wisdom. Interactions with active Dominion forces continued to test their composure. Occasionally, patrols attempted to block the human fleet, forming intimidating barriers or projecting energy pulses. Many species would have reacted defensively, possibly even attacking without thought. Humans, however, observed first. They studied movement patterns, predicted likely outcomes, and adapted strategically. Minor adjustments to shields, trajectory, and fleet coordination allowed them to navigate challenges smoothly. Dominion observers, expecting fear or aggression, saw none. Humans demonstrated that strength did not require panic, nor did courage require violence. Inside the fleet, the human crew continued to grow stronger and closer. Long periods of travel and constant problem-solving fostered trust and unity. Engineers, scientists, navigators, and officers collaborated seamlessly. Solutions were debated respectfully. Minor errors were treated as learning opportunities, and every member, from the most experienced to the youngest recruit, was encouraged to contribute. Fear could have fractured the group under such pressure, but instead, humans thrived through cooperation and communication. Their resilience became as much a part of them as their technology or strategy. Subtle shifts began appearing among Dominion individuals as well. Observers, officers, and scholars started questioning the long-standing reliance on intimidation and control. Could a species influence outcomes without fear? Could courage be expressed through ethical, thoughtful action rather than aggression? Humans had already demonstrated this possibility, and the realization began to take root. Some officers quietly experimented with cooperation and patience rather than threats. Scholars studied the humans' methods, noting patterns of calm decision-making, ethical intervention, and analytical problem-solving. Change, small and imperceptible at first, was beginning to emerge within the Dominion itself. Humans also continued to engage in quiet acts of compassion. Stranded crews from other species were assisted without expectation of reward. Abandoned stations were explored carefully to prevent accidental damage. Dangerous anomalies were studied to prevent future harm, not exploited. Each act reinforced a consistent message. Humans were a species that acted from principle, intelligence, and moral courage. Dominion officers, some skeptical, some intrigued, could not deny that humanity had left a subtle but undeniable mark on the galaxy around them. Another defining moment occurred when humans discovered a massive energy field blocking a critical path. Many would have turned away or panicked under the sudden challenge. Humans, however, approached systematically. Engineers analyzed the field, navigators calculated safe corridors, and scientists hypothesized about the energy patterns. Small probes were sent first, mapping out areas of turbulence and stability. Only once enough data was collected did the fleet proceed, moving carefully and deliberately through the field without incident. The Dominion, watching from afar, began to acknowledge that humans approached danger in a way no other species had, with patience, intelligence, and calm confidence. Throughout these final stages, humans also recognized the importance of diplomacy. They communicated respectfully with Dominion personnel, signaling peaceful intent and seeking understanding rather than conflict. This approach had a surprising effect. Some Dominion officers began to assist humans, offering guidance or subtle support in navigation and research. Cooperation, rather than intimidation, became possible simply because humans modeled ethical and deliberate behavior consistently. It was a quiet form of influence, yet profoundly effective. As humans moved closer to the heart of the Dominion, the scale of what they encountered became staggering. Gigantic stations, fleets numbering in the hundreds, and energy structures of unimaginable complexity stretched across the void. Many civilizations had been intimidated by this presence in the past, reacting with fear or aggression. Humans, however, continued as they always had, observing, learning, collaborating, and acting ethically. They adapted quickly to new challenges, ensuring their fleet remained safe while studying everything around them. Fear, which had controlled so many before them, simply did not exist in their strategy. In one of the most significant encounters, humans were approached by a high-ranking Dominion officer, a figure who had watched their actions closely. Instead of confrontation, the meeting began with questions. The officer asked why humans acted differently from every other species, why they did not panic, and why they had avoided conflict despite potential provocations. The humans responded simply, explaining that they valued understanding over dominance. That courage was the ability to act thoughtfully in the face of danger, and that collaboration often achieved more than intimidation. The Dominion officer listened carefully, intrigued and, in some measure, inspired. Even in the vastness of the Dominion, humans continued to teach without speaking directly. Their actions alone set examples. Calm problem-solving, ethical intervention, thoughtful decision-making, and patient exploration. Minor crises were solved with careful calculation. Dangerous zones were navigated with observation and strategy. And the smallest of human interventions, rescuing stranded crews, documenting abandoned stations. Avoiding harm became symbols of an entirely new approach to influence. By the conclusion of this final stage, humanity had achieved something extraordinary. They had entered the Dominion, a region shaped by fear for centuries, and transformed it not through violence or aggression, but through calm intelligence, ethical courage, and resilience. Dominion observers whispered stories of the fearless species that acted from principle rather than instinct. Some officers were inspired to reconsider old strategies. Some scholars documented the lessons for future generations, and many quietly reflected on the power of calm, ethical courage. Humans themselves understood the significance of their journey. They had faced gravitational anomalies, energy storms, complex patrols, and unexpected encounters with patience, skill, and integrity. They had navigated the Dominion not as conquerors, but as learners, observers, and ethical actors. Their mission had been to explore and understand, and in doing so, they had left a mark far beyond mere survival. They had demonstrated that fear need not dictate action, that courage could be measured by clarity and ethics, and that intelligence paired with morality could influence even the most rigid systems. As the fleet moved beyond the heart of the dome,